Well, it's time for another crazy conspiracy, and what better place to start than Antarctica, where we have the wonderful large birds that don't fly, the penguins. And we know about the Antarctic Treaty, which its main goal, of course, is supposedly to protect these birds. If we take a look at the Antarctic Treaty under environmental protection and the environmental protocol, we'll learn about how they need to protect the penguins. So I'm glad the government and Freemasons aren't doing anything bad or evil that would hurt these little guys. That would be awful. But to make sense of this theory, we need to jump to another topic, which is going to seem unrelated. However, it is connected, and that is the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is at the center of a lot of conspiracies. The Egyptian Eye of Horus is an exact symbol, of course, of the pineal gland. If I lay it on top, you can see the resemblance of the eyebrow, the eye itself being the center of the pineal gland, the duct below the eye right here, and the other part coming down this way, exactly as we see here. It is called the third eye, exactly how Joe Rogan has on his podcast. That's a reference to the pineal gland. In Hinduism, you'll also find the eye on the forehead representing the pineal gland, and that is what they mark their forehead with to represent. So it is what they call the third eye, or the all-seeing eye, as we have depicted on the dollar bill and inside of Freemasonry, probably their most favorite symbol of all, the Eye of Horus, and it's also called the Eye of the Gods. The epiphysis cerebri, or pineal body, secures its name from its peculiar shape, the pinus, or pine cone. And you can find this pine cone on almost all religions, from ancient art to the Egyptians. Here it is associated with Catholicism and a giant pine cone on display at the Vatican. Is this not also the whirling cone, which is among the symbolic playthings of the child Bacchus? Here's the child Bacchus with the pine cone on top. At birth, the structure is comparatively large, and by 12 years, it has attained its full size. Here again is a possible analogy to the Bacchus myth, for the toy cone was a symbol particular to childhood. In other words, under normal conditions, the gland deteriorates with adolescence. Retrograde evolution or degeneration of the pineal gland begins about the 6th or 7th year and is practically complete by puberty. In the book of Matthew, Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." It seems as though little children have a closer connection to the kingdom of heaven than older people do. There are several, at least 3 epiphyses which develop in the womb. They are entirely rudimentary in man. The epiphysis proper is the most posterior one and is the only one which in man differentiates to any extent. The other 2 are the paraphysis and the parietal eye, a rudimentary sense organ of some reptiles. True eyes that cannot see are found in certain animals deeply placed within the head, covered by thick skins and muscles. This is Wikipedia, so apologies for that, but it's covering the parietal eye, which is also known as the third eye or the pineal eye, which is present in fish, amphibians, and reptiles. It's located at the top of the head. It's photoreceptive and is associated with the pineal gland. Here it is at the top of a snake's head. And notice the small dot in the middle for the pineal gland. A true third eye. The function of the pineal body is unknown. In reptiles, there are 2 pineal bodies, an anterior and a posterior, of which the posterior remains undeveloped, but the anterior forms a rudimentary cyclopean eye. In reptiles, according to Spencer, the gland is of considerable length and passes through an opening in the roof of the skull. Any coincidence that Genesis 3 says that snakes were the most intelligent of all the animals that the Lord has made? Matthew chapter 10 Be ye therefore wise as serpents. In the camelon, the gland lies under a transparent scale in the parietal foramen, and its cord-like middle structure, according to Hertwig, bears a certain resemblance to the embryonic optic nerve. Investigators who have studied the pineal gland are of the opinion that the pineal body must be considered as an unpaired parietal eye, which in many cases, such as in reptiles, appears to be tolerably well preserved, but in most vertebrates is in the process of degeneration. Some of the amphibians had a median or a pineal eye in the back of the head. Many of the gigantic saurians had this eye, and you can see it in the back of the giant lizard skull, a hole through which this strange eye formerly looked out. In ourselves, the hole has boned over and the eye has shrunk up into the so-called pineal gland. Did the Egyptians know that the reptiles present the highest development of this gland, and for this reason coiled the serpent upon their foreheads, where the third eye of the Orientals is placed, just as we see here, the snake on the forehead of the Egyptians? The philosophers know that the pineal gland was an organ of conscious vision long before the physical eyes issued from the brain, not necessarily or exclusively of such vision as we have today, but rather vision of the world where man dwelt before his lapse into the present state. In other words, an eye to see into the spirit realm. It's a mistake to infer that the pineal gland is a physical body. The gland itself is not the third eye, but only a reflection of the organ, its counterpart or symbol in the material construction. The true power of the gland is its spiritual counterpart, even as the whole strength of man abides in his invisible nature. The true third eye cannot be seen by ordinary vision, but is visible in the spirit realm. It's an eye which exists to see the spirit realm. This is a book written by Manly P. Hall, who is a Freemason, and you've probably noticed throughout the book it is talking about occult. So is this all occultism? Is the pineal gland only associated with communicating with the evil spirits in the spirit realm? Let's turn to Genesis 32:30, and Jacob called the name of that place Pineal. For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Now, I know the spelling is not exactly the same, but Jacob is calling the place Pineal, where he has seen God face to face.
People say, what happens when you activate the pineal? Well, ask yourself. Every night you dream, you'll use your pineal. It's part of your anatomy. It's not something to be feared, as is commonly touted within many different faiths on the planet. Well, not many, predominantly in the West, via persons following Islam and Christianity, they fear it. They've been taught to fear it because it's where they self-empower. God is not so ridiculous and not so childish as to put a portal to a demonic world inside of you. And if he were, then he's not a very nice God, is he? Of course that's not what it is, but you believing it is, because the Vatican don't want you to know, for all they have a massive statue of a pine cone, so it's very important to them, is important to them because then you still require them for your salvation, and you cannot become fully empowered. Face it. The largest religions on the planet are now corporate. They are corporations driven by money, wealth, power, and the material wealth. I'm not saying all persons who follow it are like that, but we have to admit that's how it is. Otherwise, the Vatican would end world hunger instead of sitting on dormant, stagnant wealth. This is not as Jesus Christ would have wanted. They go into your pineal, you can hear what you're supposed to do. My message was, go to Tanzania. 4 years later, we have 600 children liberated, most of which liberated from child labour. 30 children living here with special needs who were struggling desperately outside. Animal rescue shelter, Centre for Street Involved Children. And I listened to that higher realm of information, which is where God dwells, and he asked me to come here.
Very small children have an extremely sensitive area about the crown of the head where the skull has not yet closed. In rare cases, it never closes, although usually the sutures unite between the 7th and 9th years. The sensitivity of the area of the head over the third eye during childhood is usually accompanied by a phase of clairvoyance, or the ability to perceive things beyond normal sensory contact. The child is still living largely in the invisible spirit world, and while its physical organism is still more or less unresponsive due to its incomplete state, the child has at least a shadow of activity in the spirit world with which it once was fully connected through the open gateway of the pineal gland. The all-seeing eye of the Masonic Brotherhood, the one eye of Odin, which enabled him to know all the mysteries, the eye of Horus, the eye of the Lord. All of these are alluding to the primitive organ, which is supposedly gradually being petrified, disappearing from view, having been drawn deeply into the head and buried deeply under the hair. Now, WebMD is probably not a website you should trust for medical advice, but it does verify that there is a medical condition called calcification of the pineal gland. And researchers have identified that the pineal gland develops calcifications or calcium spots. And researchers have studied a potential connection between increased fluoride exposure and pineal gland calcifications. Now, calcification of the pineal gland can't be a good thing. It's causing it to harden and not be able to be used. If the pineal gland is already in a state of atrophy, then it's certainly not. If the pineal gland is in a state of atrophy, then calcifying it is surely just going to make the problem worse. And what would that mean? That would mean kind of our connection to the spirit world, or maybe our connection to God is shut off, or we can't see or sense anything from the spirit realm. And I'm going to return to this video in a minute, but he says that he used to be an atheist, but once he took DMT and he's seen these beings in the spirit realm, he now definitely believes God is real, and he thinks it's foolish to be an atheist. So this is probably a bit of a stretch, but I have two graphs here. The first one is the growth of atheism, which from 1950, we could see the growth of atheism. And here is fluoridation by population from the same years. This is 1950 going forward, and this is 1950 going forward. So we could see that as fluoridation grows, so does atheism. It's almost as if fluoridation, or the calcification of the pineal gland, completely shutting off and shutting down the pineal gland, causes people to have no spiritual experience or no connection with the spirit realm anymore, and thus they don't believe that a God or any spirit realm exists.
Fluoride added to your water supposedly just to stop us getting cavities. It's strange how it calcifies the most important possible gland for us to have any form of spirituality, and here we are at a time where many people think they're just bags of skin without any spirit, soul or connection to a higher being, because their pineal is calcified and they can't feel it. It's atrophied by that which has been put into our water and poisoned through processed foods, processed waters using fluoride.
Now, if you've seen Altaland Child's video on exposing Freemasonry, this one right here, it's 5 hours and 17 minutes long. It goes into detail about Freemasonry and how it is the Church of Satan, and at the 33rd degree, they make a pact with Lucifer. Or maybe it's with Satan. I'm not quite sure which one. Not too interested to find out, really. Here we could see Satan, and his rank is the commander-in-chief of the armies of hell. He directly commands these other beings as well as 45 additional ones, and he himself is in service to Lucifer. So I don't know who the Masons make a pact with, if it's with Satan or if it's with Lucifer. I think it's probably Lucifer. And we can see from Masonic guys like Robert W. Sullivan, who, just works at places like History and Coast to Coast AM, a Freemason who seems to like the devil character. And the type of books he likes to write are ones like this, called A Pact with the Devil. I don't know why, a Freemason is so interested in writing books about making a pact with the devil. And when you join the 33rd degree of Freemasonry and you join the religious church at that time, to the Church of Satan, and you make a pact with the devil, how is that ritual carried out? Because when Altiland Childs emailed me, he said, obtaining the very last degrees of illumination all occur on the astral plane. I can assure you of that. And the astral plane, I believe, is just another term for the spirit realm. Astral projection is a term used for out-of-body experiences, and it's something that I've heard a lot of people use in conjunction with DMT. When they take DMT, they astral project, and they meet other beings. Let's see what Dakota of Earth has to say about his experience.
Was that I was in an astral body again. Not that like I looked down and I had like some, hey, I've got this new body. But like I held an awareness that was able to move and to look around this dimension. And I looked over and there was these snakes. I think there was like 2 or 3 of these snakes. And they seemed to be looking the other direction. And then, one of them looked at me. And all of a sudden, all these snakes were just instantaneously, like within a few seconds, not even, they were flying inside of my stomach and just like flying through my body to the point where like I could feel it. Like I was like having to like grab a hold of something. It was super overwhelming and super scary in the moment, but I remember I just had to breathe and I just tell myself like, this is why you came here. You're here to I came here to experience these realms and to experience these beings and to make contact. This is why I'm here. I had to just keep telling myself that and just keep saying, whatever happens, just let it happen. Just let it happen. And as soon as I could surrender, I was confronted with the most radiant, beautiful, overwhelming white light ever. And like the only way I can describe it is like, this is the closest experience I've had to making contact with God. And I came in contact with a serpent there too, and it didn't say anything to me, but it just presented itself to me, this royal serpent of the jungle. So I don't know why I'm having these reoccurring, and it wasn't rainbow, it wasn't a rainbow serpent at all, but it was like another serpent. I don't know why I'm having these visions of these snakes. I have no idea. Maybe it's my spirit animal, which is weird because I don't even like snakes. I'm gonna research this more because I know I'm not the only person that has made contact with the serpent beings. Like ayahuasca, people that take ayahuasca always talk about coming in contact with the serpent. And
okay, so he's seen some reptilian style snakes or serpents, some kind of beings. I would call these demons. And he met some type of a god or great being of light. And I'm pretty sure that's Lucifer. Let's read 2 Corinthians 11:14. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light, or has transformed himself into an angel of light. So it is biblical that Satan himself is an angel of light and can transform himself into an angel of light. So no big shock that Dakota of Earth meets a being which only appears as light, and he interprets that as being God, when in fact the great deceiver himself is Satan, and that, I believe, either Satan or Lucifer is who is encountered in that spirit realm. But during Masonic rituals, initiates are blindfolded. And during the 33-degree ritual, why would you have skulls all over the place, drinking wine or blood out of a skull while you're blindfolded? And truthfully, if the 33rd degree of Freemasonry occurs on the astral plane or in the spirit world, then that means the initiates are somehow getting their third eye to open up to the spirit world, just like Dakota of Earth did, which leads me to believe that in Masonic rituals such as these, the blindfolded initiate consumes some type of DMT or ayahuasca tea, which is just a DMT tea, which may be mixed with blood in the skull. The blindfolded initiate drinks it and astral projects, where they just like Dakota of Earth, meet a being of light. And while they're there on the astral plane, on their DMT trip, they make a pact with the devil that they meet and are then initiated into the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. These DMT and ayahuasca trips can happen in very short periods of time, just a few minutes. Certainly the amount of time required for a Masonic ritual. And now let's loop all the way back to the Antarctic penguins. How are penguins tied into all of this? Well, one of the emails that was leaked during the Pizzagate conspiracy was this one right here, which is from the U.S. Department of State. And the U.S. Department of State purchased frozen penguin pineal glands, which were shipped from Antarctica all the way up to New York. And I found myself asking, why are the Freemasons purchasing frozen penguin pineal glands? The fact that they have frozen penguin pineal glands is evidence that they killed a number of these birds, cut into their brain, and harvested the pineal gland out. That definitely happened. It's not a conspiracy. Otherwise, they would not have been able to have been shipped from Antarctica to New York. So the next question is, the facility where they did that at, where they extracted the penguin pineal gland, how big is the facility? And is this something they're doing on a regular basis? Is this the real reason that we have the Antarctic Treaty, to keep people out of Antarctica? Because I'm sure with all the animal rights groups and PETA, they would not allow any type of pineal gland harvesting operations anywhere in the United States or Europe. They would protest against it, and it would be shut down. But PETA isn't going to Antarctica. They're not going south of 66 degrees to ensure that there is no penguin harvesting operations going on in Antarctica. Mike Tyson recently talked with Joe Rogan and on his own podcast where he openly speaks about his DMT experiences, and he calls it the toad because he's getting the DMT from that toad. There are various sources like that for DMT. It's probably something similar that Dakota of Earth did, probably from a toad. And my guess is, I'm never going to try it, but my guess is that the DMT that these guys are taking, Mike Tyson with the toad, Dakota of Earth with the toad, that it's probably a bit weaker form of DMT, which doesn't stimulate the pineal gland quite as much. And that maybe if you were to use something like a fresh, frozen penguin pineal gland, that you may have a much more intense experience with seeing into the spirit realm and being able to actually talk one-on-one with the beings who are there. So the crazy conspiracy is that in Antarctica, there may be penguin harvesting centers where they do nothing but grow and harvest penguins for their pineal glands, which are then shipped to the United States and distributed from there to the various Masonic temples across the United States and across the world, so that the Masonic temple has the appropriate supply that they need for the rituals that they do to be able to communicate with Lucifer and those very last degrees of illumination which occur on the astral plane. How do they always get access to the astral plane as needed for their 33rd degree rituals and perhaps higher ones? They may need a source of very strong DMT where they're not being harassed by animal rights groups. There's also no record left of their source of their pineal glands or their DMT. Maybe they're just bringing up frozen penguin pineal glands to study melatonin and how to get better sleep. but I have my doubts. Now, I'm not claiming this theory to be true. I don't know if there's penguin processing centers in Antarctica. I don't know if Masons use frozen penguin pineal glands in their rituals to get initiates into the spirit realm. So maybe one little part of it was true, and maybe I missed something, and I missed some type of connection. Put it below in the comments. Let me know what you think, and come up with your own conclusion. Make up your own mind. Do your own research. Don't expect empirical truth from any person, especially me. I'm just as dumb and confused as the next guy, so I want to know the truth, and I can't do it by myself. So thanks everybody for watching, commenting, and contributing to the channel. This series was discussed over on my Discord, so feel free to join the Discord. I'll put a link to that below. See you guys in the next video.
So do you think you've done more to popularize DMT than anybody else? Do you think that these elves are real?
I don't know if real's the right word.